another episode of Underrated and Overlooked. We're happy to be here. I'm najehwilk with Craig Sager, man. Happy New Year, man. First off, before we begin the show, how fun was your New Year? What did you end up doing? And how excited you are to be back, man, and talk some sports?
It was awesome. So I got back from Rome after the Georgia Elite Classic, had a lot of fun out there. And so I kind of took it easy for the next week. Just got ready, watched some football. There's so many games on, it was insane. And just took it one day at a time. Just tried to take that mental health retreat. I
Yes.
saw it was funny. I told you I went to Hunter Teal's graduation party,
Yep.
and his dad and a couple other Walton parents were like, Craig, man, we saw you at the beginning of the season, and then by the end, it's like you looked exhausted. You guys looked run down. I was like, exactly, but feel refreshed now.
Good.
I feel a lot better than I did last year after the national championship.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a movie.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. We ended up going to was it John Bricky's house along with Rob Baca. It was a lot of fun too. I mean, obviously it was a butt whooping,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was nuts. I still had that skin cancer on my back. I'm bleeding. I come in here. I was in rough shape. I feel a lot better, even though Georgia didn't win. But
They did win.
well, that year, not this year.
Oh,
I'm saying
gotcha.
that
Gotcha.
even that didn't make that next day
Worse.
Yeah, that was a rough one. It'd be hard to find my top 10 all timers, but it's probably up there.
Well, good, good. Well, glad to have you back, man. My New Year's was fine. I didn't do too much. Just hung with a friend and a little bit of family and left it at that, man. But let's go and get into it. So, some major offseason moves and news in Georgia. So, I think the big one so far is the hire of Elahir Martinez from Mount
Yep.
Pisgah. They move on from their really great coach. So, just what's your thoughts on that initially and him being the next head coach for the program?
Yeah, so I talked about that briefly yesterday. So Mount Pisgah's been in Corky Cal the last few years. They've had some big time prospects. We saw them go head to head with Fellowship the last few years. But I think this is a good one because Ryan Livesley, last year's head coach, he was always doing double duties, athletic director, football coach. And so he's able to take Martinez these last few years, kind of build him into that um, familiar coach within the program. And now he takes over, and then Livesy's going to go over to the AD role. So I really like that hire, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do. Mount Pisgah, it's been really competitive. And so I don't think there's going to be too much change right there. The big vacancy that I'm looking to see who's going to take over is Harrison. I think that's a really intriguing one because Coach Cassidy, he stepped in 2021. He was the defensive coordinator under Matt Dickman when they won the state title. And so he recently took over the head coaching job. And we covered their game last year. They had such a great start to the season,
Yep.
Lost a tough game to North Paulding. It was rainy. They obviously didn't play well, but they really did have a lot of young, promising prospects. Braylon Ford was an outstanding quarterback. And so I'm interested who's going to take over that Harrison job because I think that is a prime opening.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a great point out by you, Craig. Definitely, it's going to be big to see who takes over there. They had a really good season last year too. Came up just a little bit short of winning the region title, but made some noise. Made the game against North Paulding very competitive. The game we had televised. Christian Smith looks like to be a prime prospect. Got a lot of praise and noise around Georgia Elite Classic, so that'll be interesting to see kind of how he shapes out next year too.
Absolutely. And the last 2 years with Harrison are so interesting because before this season, so the season before that, they started off slow and then finished strong in the regular season. This year was kind of the complete opposite. They started 6-0, then had some tough losses. So they were really close to being that really consistent winning program, getting that home field advantage in the playoffs. They just came up short in it. Tough region, Marietta, McEachern, North Paulding, but Hillgrove. I think they'll be fine, but we definitely saw some exciting pieces, not only this last season, but then Georgia Elite, Christian, what's his name?
Smith.
Yeah, Christian Smith.
Yep.
Yeah, he did his thing. So I think, yeah, that's a big time opening. I think that the latest tally was up in the 40s. So when I looked at it yesterday, it was like 32. So I have it pulled up right here. Mount Vernon, that's another interesting one. That one's remains open. Coach Dabbs, he did a good job with the Mustangs. That's a pretty new program. I think last year was probably one of their best ever regular seasons and playoff runs. They were in that same region as Fellowship Christian. They did their thing right there. Midtown is going to be an interesting one as well. That was a program that didn't even compete. They actually defaulted on their whole season 2 years ago. Then they played a non-region one this last year, produced a winning record. That was Delbert Ellington that helped them get back on track. But now that they head back into the regular schedule, it's going to be interesting to see who takes over that. And then Coach Slayton, gone at Mays.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
just
I didn't
step
hear
down
about
there.
that.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, well, we actually got some big breaking news on that too, Craig. Want to get your thoughts on that? A player actually just transferred out of Mays and going to a new school. So bring it up in just a little bit. My next one, big offseason move, this has to do with a player, but top 25 offensive lineman Peyton Joseph, formerly of Peach County, has transferred over to Houston County. So he will be on that offensive line. We got to see him this year. We seen what kind of happened towards the end of the game. He started giving up some sacks against Leroy Jackson and obviously Lee County. But I think, man, that's going to be a great move for him. Got a great quarterback, great system, great team, great head coach. So a big move for him, I think, is only going to help him.
Yeah, and man, there's a lot of movement in Peach County.
Yes.
Remember that stat you showed me about Peach County quarterbacks? You had Coulter Ginn and E.J. Colson. Both were former Peach County guys.
They were.
We saw last year with Jones County, a lot of movement within the Peach County.
Yep.
So not surprising at all, but I do think just the level of talent in Middle Georgia with all those programs is off the charts. But we do see a lot of big-time prospects move around.
We sure do, and I think we're seeing it more. And I think definitely going to have to keep news on it now. Might have to come up with a high school transfer portal at this point. I mean, with all the transfers, and you think about it, man. But let's talk about some more big transfers in the state. We'll close with Zelus Hicks, but let's go with Tommy Lafayette. We talked about it off air yesterday, Craig, and you brought up some great points. I think they will be a top 10 team, especially when you bring Ryan Hall back. Then you bring kind of a battering ram, a bruiser, and Tommy Lafayette to the team. And then you have Eric Ronning, and then defensively you got Chandler Jordan, who's a 3-star player, and Cole Funderburk as well. So, I mean, I think they got a lot of good pieces. Obviously, Eric Godfrey's their coach, but I think, landing him is only going to help their offense.
Yeah, and Ryan Hall's such an underrated rusher. He nearly had 800 yards on the ground last year. They had a bunch of young, talented, upcoming receivers. They're able to hit quick plays. Having a running quarterback's huge just for the overall balance. But Tommy Lafayette, that's a type of player they haven't had. He is a workhorse. He's really coming into his own as a running back. He's capable of taking 20 carries. I think he'll do very well in that region. He's obviously played at Lambert. You're going up against the likes of Milton, the Forsyth team. So he's been a 7A back as an underclassman. So I think he's going to be a great fit, big-time transfer, and he's going to give an already balanced offense just that reliable ability to just drive down the field 3 yards at a time, 4 yards at a time. And if Ryan Hall's able to find space outside like he can, might find some big home run plays by Tommy.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think it's going to take a little bit, obviously, off of Hall as well in the running game. Obviously, they're going to use him in the read option and things like that. But when you bring a running back like that in, I mean, I think that definitely is going to help and aid. And like you said, they're going to be even a more balanced group, and they're going to be tough to defend next year.
Yep. And I think with Ryan Hall, I mean, he really stood out this last season. He got thrown into the fire as a sophomore. They lost a ton of talent from that previous team. They were super young. And then you have Coach Godfrey coming in, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. I thought last year he looked phenomenal, and I really do think he improved every single week. He played outstanding against Norcross, played well in the playoffs, only had 4 interceptions the entire season. I think he understands the offense. He's developed into a leader. I think he has a chance to do something special next season. People do not need to be sleeping on North Gwinnett.
No, they do not. And then the next big one out of that same region it was in prior was Parkview. Zelus Hicks is transferring over to Carrollton. And Craig, what did I tell you on the show back in December? I said I felt like Carrollton just doesn't have, like, they have great players. Obviously, had Kelvin Hill, had great defensive linemen, but I felt like they have not had that star player defensively, that dog on defense that you could just depend on. And really, this is a two-way player. I mean, he's an athlete. He's not just a defensive back. He wants to play both sides of the ball. Now you're going to add that kind of a player, that type of caliber player to your offense, along with Ryan Mosley next year. We saw what Kamari Farmer was able to do in Georgia League Classic. So you add that along with Juju Lewis, and then defensively got a guy that can pretty much is a game changer, can come, lay big hits, man, can play coverage really well. I mean, I think this is a knockout punch. I think Carrollton's going to be a lot better for it.
Yeah, he is very special. When we saw him play, I mean, he could have had even more interceptions last season. He was always in the right spot. Some of those would have been obviously really difficult. He did eventually produce a lot of game-changing plays. But what did we see with state championship teams this year? We saw in the big games, they're able to go man coverage and let their defense play like that. When you have guys that can just handle business on their side of the field, handle the roles, and have the situational athleticism in the big moments on a big third down to produce those turnovers and big stops. He does it all. And I think he's a great fit for Carrollton. And it looks like they're going to have those pieces returning.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him.
Kamari Farmer, I mean, my goodness.
That's how good he was.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah, I think they're going to have some dogs, man. So landing Zelus Hicks, man, is only going to make Carrollton better, man. And they're going to be a team to watch for. We'll see if they can get any players as far as just defensive lineman, maybe linebacker that, kind of help aid. But this is a knockout, I think.
And they had underclassmen receivers last year stepping up. Who was the freshman again? What was his name? They had a freshman get in the fold early. I know he ended up producing some big touchdowns.
I don't know that one. I know Mosley, though, Ryan Mosley, the sophomore.
Yes.
I have to look into the freshman. But, yeah, great point out by you, Craig. A lot of underclassmen. I think it's going to probably come together for him next year. I think they're 6A, right?
Yep.
Going to next year, yeah. So 6A is going to be interesting. I think Carrollton will be right there to be able to compete and contend. But more recruiting news as far as just college goes and updates. North Gwinnett edge rusher Cole Funderburk, who we just mentioned, he's going to announce his top schools today at 2 p.m. So look out for that. Guy had double-digit sacks. Marquee player, obviously, for the North Gwinnett program. Very versatile, do a lot of things well. He's going to be announcing his top schools today.
Interesting, yeah. Double-digit sack guy, absolute beast up front for him. And I really like North Gwinnett this upcoming season. I think those guys have had to play in that brutal region, but, I mean, they got thrown out there as sophomores. We know how much talent they've produced at the defensive line. They're notorious for that. So I think he's holding it down and definitely will be a big-time player to watch. But before we move on from the high school, let's just go over a couple more of these real quick.
Yep.
Cambridge, Craig Bennett.
That's a big one.
That's a big opening. We saw a couple of the teams that we witnessed at Georgia Elite where you're like, okay, they have a lot of guys that in these underclassmen groups that are going to be able to build. I thought Prince Evan Christian was one of those. I thought Cambridge had a ton of impressive skill guys. Harrison, we mentioned them. Washington County had some really talented young guys.
Yep.
Milton obviously just did their thing. Norcross. But I think Cambridge, that is a very intriguing position to take. They've been knocking on the door with these deep playoff runs, quarterfinals. Can they find the next guy to lead them into the semis and put together a state championship season? I know that's the goal.
They got not to cut you off, they got some good pieces, too, coming back. We talked about the two receivers, Hudson Cochera and obviously Craig Dandridge. Got a good, really good running back in Tyler Blaylock as well. So they got the pieces there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are in contention again for a region title. I mean, they got the pieces, I think, offensively in order to compete and contend this year.
Yep. And Coach Bennett, of course, he went to Pickens, so he'll be leading the Dragons. We also saw East Forsyth. They had their best season ever. New school. Coach Allison leaves. They hired Dustin Cannon. Fayette County's got a new coach. Still open, though. Nick Davis stepped down. Haralson County, Scott Peavy leaves. He did a great job for the Rebels these last few years. Kings Ridge Christian just replaced Coach Crowder. You got, let's see, a couple more. The Mays one, definitely. Who's going to take over that position? Ola, their best season ever. Coach Tom Causey, he's leaving.
Really?
Yeah, so I think he's going to get a promotion. He's definitely a top candidate for one of these big-time jobs. Riverwood's open. Coach Young stepped down. You got South Cobb, Tiff County. They struggled a little bit these last few years. Union Grove, Wheeler County. So they're starting to open up. It's not as busy, in my opinion, as it was last year. That was a crazy carousel. I thought the big ones were obviously when Bill Stewart stepped down, when McFarland stepped down to go to Tech. That was a key part of that carousel, but we're already moving into the upper 40s, so it's starting to get active.
Yes, it is. It's a good point. Yeah, it's getting active. It's getting active for players, too. A couple other big transfers Caleb Roberson, obviously from Mays, he just transferred to Douglas, Atlanta. So that's a big one for them. We know they have Jonte Gilbert, so it'll be interesting to see kind of the role he'll be able to play with that program. But yep, he is out of Mays. That was breaking news about 20 minutes ago. And then also you had from Raymond Gap, Nakuchi, I believe is how you say it. You had big James Carrington. He transferred over to Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, Craig. So some big time moves. We're going to have you updated for all the high school news, portal news, what's ever going on with far as just obviously recruiting updates, players transferring, and obviously coaches landing new jobs and, stepping down or getting new gigs. So stay tuned for that. But that is all I got. I think we got one more segment. We're going to talk about Brody Hannibals. Anything else you've seen that caught your eye, correct, before we go to the Tell Us Tape?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so let's share it. Tell the tape with Brody Hanna. Is this the one? I don't think that's it. No. One sec, guys. All right, here we go. All right, don't share the screen with you guys. Brody Hanna from Loganville, their quarterback, had a pretty good junior season, 24 total touchdowns. And let Craig see. I'll tell you about some things that stands out about his game. So right here, you're going to see just the deep ball. Good accuracy, overthrowing two defenders right there. Same thing, fitting it into a tight window. Love that right there. You're going to get a little bit of a play action. Boom, finds his read. Good accurate throw. I think this was one of my – oh, no, it's not yet. Good back pylon throw right there. Boom, here's a back shoulder fade. Put it on the receiver can get it. Boom. Here's the deep ball. I love this. 3 defenders, guys. Look where he places the football.
Throwing with a lot of confidence.
Yes. I think he's an excellent deep ball thrower. You're going to see it on his throw right here. Boom. Let's look at it again. Okay, boom. So you see that? Great coverage. Everybody's pretty much locked up.
Look how deep that safety is.
Yep. Go back. Great point out by Craig. Let's look at it one more time. So as Craig said, look at how deep the safety is. This is the safety right here. Everything's covered pretty good. He just throws him open. Three DBs right there. I mean, that's phenomenal. Great deep ball. And right here finds the seam. Good throw right there. Hit his receiver in stride. Let him do his thing. 1-2, nothing's there. Look at him by time. Love that throw right there, right to the sideline. Nothing there initially. Play makes. Right here, good throw off the run. Now, this is my favorite play, and I'm going to tell you guys why. I'm going to break this play down. But great job by him. Finds his receiver for the touchdown. But let's break it down a little bit more in depth. I'm going to tell you guys why that's my favorite play. Okay, so first off, his first read's right here. So first read's not there. This is great coverage right here. He's going to come down. Right, boom. That's the whole part. It looks like they're playing cover 3. He comes down. Boom. Not there. Okay, he doesn't panic, right? Everybody's covered. You can see right here. Everybody's covered. Waits. Okay, I'm going to hold. Then he's going to leak out. He leaks out over to the right side. Great job, too, by these 2 receivers, giving him a way he can throw the ball. A lot of receivers stop when they're covered. Kept moving. Love that right there. First read not there, Craig, but you keep the play open. Make a play. Love that. I'm right here going to see him roll to the right. Got a little bit of pressure. Boom. Good accurate throw on the sideline. Love that. Boom. Little play action. Hit his hot read. Get the ball out quick. All right, same thing here. Look at him. Step up. Boom. Nice accurate throw in the zone. All right, here's the deep ball. And it's actually busted by the offense because 2 receivers running the same route, basically. But still, look how you throw him open.
Hickwinski's the only one I've seen do that this year.
Yes.
Got Cam Lloyd and Bam both back there.
Boom, look at that. Like, I'm going to avoid the rush right there. Still throws an accurate throw. Get it to the receiver in space. Love it. All right, boom. There it is right there. Nothing's there. Like him use his feet. Underrated part of his game is a dual threat ability. But as you can see right there, athletic enough in order to score a touchdown. Great play design right there. Boom. Here we go again. Another deep ball. I mean, it's great coverage.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just throwing these receivers open. It's excellent coverage. Boom. Find the void in the defense right there in the middle of the field. Hit the receiver in stride. Let him do his thing. Boom. Another back shoulder one right there. So,
Yeah.
Craig, I'll start with you, and then I'll give my take. What stood out about his tape? What did you like most?
He's got great touch when he's throwing to the sideline. He's throwing receivers open. Thing that we always look for with quarterbacks, whether they're elite or not, their throws over the middle. He's able to deliver it with confidence and with enough zip on the ball to fit in the windows. And I think his size is a big deal also. 6'2", over 200 pounds. That gives him confidence in the pocket. And then when he's running in space, he's not going to necessarily look for contact, but you can tell it's going to take a lot to bring him down.
100% agree. For me, I have to agree with you. Great touch. I think it's an excellent deep ball. Some of the best one you'll see probably in the state. He's throwing these receivers open, as Craig alluded to. I think he's good at buying time. Sometimes that read is not there, but he can buy time, be a playmaker, and not throw it into harm's way. Sometimes you'll see a quarterback buy time, but then throw it into a tight window for interception. Good at buying time, but finding the right read. I like that he doesn't get flustered if the first read's not there. We've seen that on several plays in that tape as well. First read's not there. He's waiting, kind of throws his receivers open. Love that as well. I think it's a great ability, Craig, at climbing the pocket. Climbs up the pocket, gets up the middle, able to throw those deep balls as well. And I think just, I think he's good at all those things, and I think he's very accurate too. I think that's an underrated part of his game. And the dual threat ability, may not wow you with the speed, but still has the ability to be able to escape and extend plays and get first downs.
Yeah. And on the play you liked, he's great at stepping up in the pocket, but they're in the red zone. It's a second and short. He's able to drop back almost like 15 yards. He's just reading everything. And then I think that was either the fullback or tight end just goes out.
Yep.
Easy money. So he's able to step up, but also buy himself time because he's got such a big arm.
Yep.
And just keep dropping back and letting things develop. So watched a lot of quarterback tape. He's definitely the real deal.
He is. So Brody, Hannah, if you guys want to get on him early, me and Craig are putting you guys on to this quarterback from Loganville, a very special player. They're going to have some great weapons back next year as well. So team to watch. He did make the playoffs this season. They did lose to Mays in the first round, but they're going to be very special. He's going to be one of the reasons why. They got some great players out in the Loganville program, so y'all go give them a follow. Go tune in to Coach Trent Robinson. Appreciate you sending this tape over as well, but go tune in. But let's go ahead and move to our second segment. Time to talk some college football now. We got to react to last night's game, Washington versus Michigan national title game. But what stood out to you, Craig? What were some of the things that you thought was kind of those key factors for victory for Michigan?
I think Michigan just played outstanding, and I mean the technique was there. And when I knew they won the game, I think it was in the first quarter. They had a missed opportunity on, I think it was first down. Set them up for a 2nd and 10, and then they have the running play, and it breaks for like a 35-yard touchdown. When you have a negative play on first down that backs you up into a 2nd and 10, and you have that much confidence, you can just hand the ball off. I just think they were well prepared. They knew the game plan front and back of their hands, and they played with a ton of confidence on both sides of the ball. And then you got to give them credit in the trenches. I thought they dominated.
Yeah, I agree with you. The trenches, that was kind of, what we saw early on. And I'm going to be honest, Craig, when they played Alabama, that was the reason why they stayed in the game. Like the offense struggled early, but the defense, showed up. They made it tough. And you really got to get a game ball to the defense again. They only had 1 sack in this game, but when you look at it, they were creating pressure. They was, hitting Michael Penix Jr., made him feel uncomfortable. He was, I think it was either 3 for 13 or 3 for 14 for throws down the field of 10+ yards. That is not like him. So he struggled in this one. They rattled him enough to where he wasn't comfortable. Like sometimes he thought pressure was there when it wasn't. That led to those kind of interceptions. And then Penix was missing. Like he doesn't usually miss his throws to Rome Odunze and Polk and his receivers. He was missing a lot of throws, and the communication and timing wasn't there like how it usually is. So to your point, Craig, you have to credit that obviously to their outstanding defense. And then offensively, I know Coach Harbaugh came out and said he thinks he's the best Michigan quarterback in history. I don't really agree with that, but I will say Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum really won that game. 238 yards and 4 touchdowns. And his 2 touches in the first, I think, quarter or half, Donovan Edwards scored on both of them. Big, large, long touchdowns. We both been howling them since last year, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and they showed up.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers were insane rushing. You mentioned Donovan. 6 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. That level of efficiency, insane. I think with McCarthy, though, what I like about him, some of his throws did put a little too much velocity on it, but you see this ability he has, like when he's got to get it out fast. He puts a lot of speed on the ball. His receivers were making some great catches, and I mean, he played a great game. Can't knock him on that, but it's just the efficiency. 10 of 18. You look at the other side, 27 of 51.
Yeah,
can't run the ball at all the entire game.
Yeah,
just 46 yards on the ground. I mean, it was a dominant victory, and it's easy to see why with when you rush for 303 yards and shut down the other team's running.
Yeah, basically that's what they did. And then shout out to Washington defense, even though they give up a lot of yardage on the ground, and did keep them in the game. They had multiple chances at the apple to bite at the apple in that game. I thought just being able to, kind of get the ball, but it just couldn't get anything going. When they got something going, it was flagged or called back. Or like you said off air, Craig, they faced a lot of 3rd and longs, and that makes a difference. That plays into the hands of the defense. So, and back to your point about the running game, I think, obviously he tried to tough it out Dylan Johnson, but that obviously had an impact on the game. He wasn't 100%. Some of those holes were there, Craig, if you looked in the game, but his ability not to really have that same kind of burst that he's had throughout the season, playing through that injury, you can kind of see it. So I think, too, they should have, used a little bit of their other weapons as well, just rushing the football. Obviously, he's great, but he wasn't 100%. At some point, you got to get your other running backs involved, too.
Yeah, and I'm sure you noticed this watching the game. That Michigan secondary, once they got in the 3rd and longs, they tackled outstanding in the open field. I mean, the second they complete a pass, and sometimes you see game breakers where it's a big 3rd and 12. They catch it over the middle. They're able to fight for that first down. I don't think they got one of those. It was gang tackling. They came in there fast, head down. I think they got called for like 1 targeting, but they were flying around. I was impressed with that secondary. Michigan's got some big receivers, some really great talented ones, but when you know where the sticks are and you can just fly in there, they definitely tackled really well. I was just impressed with the overall fundamentals. I mean, that you can tell that Michigan team, they handle business at practice. They came in very well prepared, and obviously when you've been searching for a national title that long, they were extremely motivated to do it.
Yes, they were, and you got to point out last point on the game. Definitely got to point out their defensive line, right? They were, and the thing was, Craig, they were winning with Graham. They were winning with their front 4. Like some of it, they weren't even blitzing, but it just seemed like to me, watching it, like the right tackle, the left tackle, like Penis would come up and he would ask for the hike or try to hike the football, and they were just so slow out of their stance coming out, and it felt like they just had a beat every time on the snap, in my opinion, the Michigan defense. And that made a difference. Where you don't have to bring pressure and your front 4 can get there. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a good game. Obviously, it wasn't the most exciting. People that hate Michigan obviously didn't enjoy it, but thought it was very interesting just to watch it. I mean, I've seen Washington a couple of times this season, but I mean, they've got some big receivers. I mean, that they've got some real talent on that team, but just seeing that Michigan secondary just flying in there like they did, I mean, that was give a lot of credit to them. And then, yeah, the defensive pressure they're able to put on them, and then just the timing on some of those. There was that big opportunity in the first half where he's open. I think he tried to throw away from the safety. I mean, they had chances. It's just Michigan as a team thought they probably got the edge in coaching, just the preparedness, and then they were, obviously on the ground offensively. You aren't going to win a game when you give up 300 yards rushing.
No, you're not. And that's basically what happened, man. But shout out to Washington. Had a really great season, 14-1, battled all through, played some tougher games. Just came up a little bit short. It'd be like that sometimes. Obviously, they'll have to, rebuild a little bit, have a new quarterback at the helm now. But shout out to Michigan. I mean, obviously, after losing to TCU, they could have, threw it in. A lot of players that were draft eligible could have left, but they came back to come and win a title, and they were able to do so. So shout out to them for not, letting that moment kind of, be something more than it was. Relish in it, see what it was, and then come back stronger the next year, and they did that.
Yeah, and that team, I mean, that is a very special accomplishment. I know it's probably a long season for them. Got all the outside noise that broke, obviously, before the season even started. They're kind of dealing with it the whole time. But to be able to give that program its first national title since '97, I mean, that means a lot. I'm happy for those players. They're going to obviously be heroes the rest of their lives for doing it. And then we'll see what happens to Harbaugh.
Yes, we will. We will see what happens. I have a funny feeling he'll be in the NFL, but we will find out here short enough. But let's keep it rolling. Some big news around the transfer portal in NCAA. So we got to kind of handle that a little bit. Ole Miss running back Quinshawn Judkins, formerly of Pike Road and of Ole Miss, he committed to Ohio State. I think he adds another big piece for them. They're going to lose a couple draft-eligible guys at the running back position. But last year had a really good season, Craig. Rushed for 1,158 yards and 15 touchdowns. So he was big time for them last year. I think he will add a lot to the Ohio State program. And, you know, he wants to go there. He wants to win and contend for a title. I think he'll be able to do that there.
Yeah, Ole Miss has been very active, and I feel like they've been playing both sides out of their mouth because Lane's simultaneously criticizing other programs for doing it. And then didn't they also pick up that defensive end from James Madison recently?
They did.
So they've been very active. Ole Miss, I mean, they're really close.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, a couple of big pieces like that, and they definitely can compete this upcoming season, be a top 10 team, and be in that conversation. But this also, I think what's interesting this year, people are pointing out, you're seeing players enter the transfer portal, exploring what's out there, and then coming back in a lot of cases. Obviously, it's happening at Georgia, and it's as expected, but I think the fact that people know what's happening has become a part of it after the season. I think that's what's interesting moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you, Craig. That's a good point. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, with some of these kids, sometimes it's better off, you know, staying put. But other big news, obviously, Najehwilk, formerly of Oregon State, committed to Florida State. That was a big move for them. They needed a quarterback. Obviously, have Tate Rodemaker, who was a freshman, but I believe he entered the portal as well. So they needed to replace that to bring in Ugalele. So, I mean, you're going to have a good team kind of coming back. Obviously, some players are going to enter NFL draft, but you definitely needed to knock on that. Another big move, former Florida Atlantic receiver, Craig, of LaJonte Wester. He transferred to Colorado. Had a pretty good year, 108 receptions, 1,168 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I think he's going to be a good slot piece for them. We know they got some other really good players that can play. But, you know, I think having that kind of a mix, Craig, that big body and then the slot guys, the smaller guys, the tweener guys, I think it's going to help them.
Yep. So I have this. This is the latest transfer rankings. Does anyone on this list surprise you? Obviously, Colorado's up there, number 2. Ole Miss currently a top score, 74.06. South Carolina's been active.
No, not really. None of them really surprised me.
I'm surprised that Auburn's not up there. We've got Georgia's up there. So this is, yeah, where's Auburn at?
I don't think they've been active in the portal like that.
Yeah, but between the potential to land KJ Bolden and then not being active, what's the strategy?
You got so many DBs, no need to. You guys still got Jalen Crawford coming in. I think they really nailed their class. I think that's why they felt pretty good about not really hitting the portal.
Interesting. So looks like Ole Miss has had 12 transfers, Colorado 20, FSU 8, 9, Georgia just 6. So that's interesting.
Yes, it is.
I've not followed the transfer ratings like that. But, I mean, do you think it's going to continue? Obviously, the season's done now.
You'll see more. Rodell Williams of Alabama.
We got signing day coming up.
Yeah, Rodell Williams of Alabama, he entered the portal as well, that running back that had a pretty good season. So I think it will certainly continue.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
We will definitely be covering that.
Yep. So keep it locked here for news. But let's transition to Georgia, Craig. Was there any big transfers you saw? I thought one they added yesterday, Jaden Mayeva from I believe it was Washington State. I'm sorry. I think it was let me put the school. I can't remember the school.
They got the
UNLV. That's what it was. Yep. So he transferred real quick, right? He transferred from UNLV. I thought he was going to go to USC because you got to think about it. Caleb Williams is going to enter the draft. Malachi Nelson transferred out. They don't really have a quarterback at USC. I mean, they got obviously the guys they got from the 2024, but I thought that would have been a better fit instead of going to Georgia, where you're going to be a backup to Carson Beck, and then you're going to have to compete for the job in 25.
Yeah, they don't have a quarterback or a defense. I mean,
yeah, we'll see.
I think USC is in a very tough spot because, yeah, you have outstanding superstar quarterback the last few years. You have probably one of the worst defenses of all time, giving up 40 points a game. It's a great school, great tradition, but, man, you need that superstar quarterback, so that's a big loss for them. I thought this one was interesting because I've been criticizing Georgia's receiver class.
Yeah, what you think?
I think Landon Humphreys is an interesting pickup from Vanderbilt, the 6'3" receiver. You look at him, how does he compare to these past receivers? He's 6'3".
It's a little different.
That's a good thing. They've been more shifty, and they've been leaning more towards a smaller route. This guy's a state championship long jumper. That's a good sign. And he's also a track guy. So he seems to me like he might be this deep threat guy. He's able to clear. They have the offense going. Obviously, Carson Beck's going to be back there. I think it's a good move. I don't think he's going to be this Ladd McConkey shifty beast catching slants and making guys move. But I do think he does add size and a potential deep threat. And obviously, he's a proven player. So it's good to see them add some depth. I think they're going to be fine at the tight end spot next year.
Oh, yes.
They're absolutely loaded.
We can talk about them. Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, they all got playing time in that Orange Bowl. All did pretty well. I think Delp had a touchdown.
That's right.
They're going to be just fine. Yep, I actually saw that game.
Yeah, so Pierce Berlin as like the third stringer. Lawson Lucky, total baller.
We already know.
He's probably the closest to the Brock just in terms of toughness. Just
size too. Yeah, that's a good point.
He's an absolute baller. He did his thing. Every time we watch him, Oscar Delp, same thing, but he's more of a blocking guy. He can definitely catch too, though. But I think Lawson is going to fit the Brock mold. They got Jaden Riddell, freshman, 6'4", 235, completely okay with their tight ends. You look at let's see. I thought this was interesting. This is like a early depth chart. They've got Daniel Calhoun, right tackle as a backup, so second string. I thought he was going to go into the interior, but they've been saying he's been impressive. Him at right tackle, I think it's a nice fit too.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because he's not having to rely on going in there as a freshman as a left tackle. That's tough to do.
And you blocking the quarterback's blind side too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough to do. But him at right tackle, some of these counters, man, there's a big body out there. So he's already a second stringer. Dylan Fairchild, another Georgia product. He is potentially going to be starting at left guard. Offensive line, completely fine. Quarterback, completely fine.
How do you feel about the running backs? You guys just landed Trevor Etienne too. We got to see him play. He was the reason why they got that big upset against Tennessee earlier this year. Really great running back. I think obviously after losing Kendall Milton and obviously DeJohn Edwards. What do you think about the class of the running back?
Yeah, Trevor that you're talking about, 5'9", 205. That is my favorite type of running back. The short, compact, low to the ground. Yeah. That's what I like.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge. And then he's going to be, Branson Robinson, some experience there. No freshmen in the fold, it looks like. But, sophomores, juniors, I think they'll be fine in that position. They just got to have a good spring, stay healthy.
Well,
a good position battle.
Yeah, well, they got, obviously, it's going to be Dwight Phillips is there now at the running back and obviously Chancey Bowen. So we'll see. Probably will sit their freshman year, but you never know with football. Always have injuries and stuff. But those are some of the guys they brought into it.
That's right. And I'd like to see them get some snaps and some carries this next season just to see how they do in the moment. They're obviously young, but we're seeing it more and more. These guys are ready to go on the big stage. And then, I mean, defensively, let's face it. Georgia's secondary next year, Lord, this is going to be fun. Obviously,
it's talented.
Ellis Robinson, from what everyone's saying, this is the best.
Yep.
when you're a DB and you're in these big games, you're guarding the best guy, and literally no one has a single highlight where you're giving up one play. I mean, I haven't seen anyone like expose any weakness in his coverage skills. He's an absolute beast. So he's coming in. You got DeMello Jones. You got Julian Humphrey now returning. So I mean, their secondary completely loaded.
Yeah.
And so
Still got Malachi Starks.
yeah, for
We got
sure.
KJ Bolden coming in. I mean, they got dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's loaded. I think that's probably one of their best position groups.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I do.
So you get the guys that flirted with the transfer portal, they're back. You got the number one safety, number one cornerback coming in, DeMello Jones. I think he's ready to go. So much depth, so much talent. That position is locked down. I think all those guys have NFL potential. And then it's always a fun battle on that defensive line and linebacker. So I think next year's Georgia team, I think it's better on paper than this one last year.
And real quick before we transition to tech, just what are your thoughts on your guys landing, obviously, the number one linebacker in the country, Justin Williams out of Oak Ridge, him coming in, right? We know you guys lost a couple linebackers, and then just defensive line-wise, I think that's been a position a lot of people have highlighted on the Georgia team of just, they need a lot of depth there. They get a piece in the transfer portal. But how do you feel about those two positions?
Oh, it's gonna be fun to watch. I just think when you have those ball hawks behind you that are able to play man, lock it down, linebackers just gonna be able to just have massive production all season long and just play fast.
100%.
Yeah, I definitely think on paper this Georgia is better heading into next season than they were last year. I don't know how anyone could argue that with all the pieces they had to replace, and it was kind of wait and see. You had Dejon Edwards having to step up and carry them. It's like across the board, though, I think they're deeper and they're going to be more exciting.
And actually, too, I meant to tell you guys are number one in the too early top 25 as well going into next season. So that goes to show you how high people are on you.
Carson is one of the Heisman favorite, and I think he's going to come in with, the experience of last season, but also it's like, now's your time. You're the face of the team now. You're a superstar.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
I think he's going to step up.
I agree with you. Well, that's what we got for Georgia news. Obviously,
he came so close this year.
He did. But, yep, that's what we got as far as Georgia news. Obviously, Craig has been on it. So, shout out to him for covering Georgia and being on all these moves that they've been making. And it's a lot to keep up with, but shout out to Craig for doing that. Also, as well, Georgia Tech has been pretty active in the portal. They've added some guys so far this offseason, or just right after the season. Keelan Rutledge, they added him from Middle Tennessee. He was a team captain, all-conference guard. Add him to the fold. We talked about Jackson Hughes a few weeks ago from Yale. Had a pretty good year. Second team all-conference, 375 yards and 6 touchdowns. They also added another tight end from Mississippi State and formerly of Georgia, Rylan Good. He's on the team as well. I like the depth that they added on the defensive line. I think they can contribute now. Jack Barton from Furman, and then obviously Oyabami Tafase from Florida State. I think that's going to really help their team out as well coming in. And I think they really nailed the 2024 class. They did lose out, obviously, on Trajan Greco, but I do think that is going to help them out a lot. Some big transfers out, though, Craig. Kenyatta Watson II, he's going to go to Georgia State. They also lost their quarterback, one of their quarterbacks, Zach Gibson. We know, obviously, Hayes King is going to be the starter, but he also transferred to Georgia State. So that's interesting there. And the reason I bring those up, Craig, they're both going to play each other next year at Georgia Tech, Georgia State versus Georgia Tech. So a couple players from Tech now over at Georgia State. Also, who just entered the portal was Tyson Miguez as well. He entered it last night. And then offensive lineman Jakiah Leftwich as well entered the portal. Yep.
Interesting. So that's 22 outgoing at this point, 9 incoming. Maybe we'll see a situation like Georgia where these guys enter the transfer portal and come back. Maybe a couple of them.
Yeah.
That could be a potential. Don't ever count that out. But, man, a lot of these interesting. It's like Warren Burrell went to North Gwinnett. Ryland, I think he went to –
said he was at Georgia to start. And then he transferred to Mississippi State. That's what I saw.
And then Kennesaw Mountain, that's right.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys are coming home. And you got to give credit to – obviously, Coach Key, but man, those connections that maybe McFarland and Coach Stewart have.
They're doing a good job.
Yeah.
They're doing an outstanding
And
job.
it's obviously the whole staff, but to see a lot of these Georgia guys that were big time names coming back, that's exciting.
I think too the allure that you have now, right? Obviously the academic piece too. I mean, like some of that is kind of for guys that don't like, some guys do, but
Yep.
you're graduating from a prestigious university, you know, and I think that obviously adds a lot in the program. Like I told you last year, Craig, on the rise. Went bowling last year, especially now 7-6 to end the 2023 season. So they got a lot of potential, man. I think they're going to be very, very good, and they're only going to build on next year. And then they flipped some guys too, Amontre Bradford, and then they flipped Anthony Carey, the running back. So I mean, you go add Anthony Carey, and then you obviously add Jamal Haynes with an experienced quarterback now, Haynes King, really good receiving core, Eric Singleton, Dominic Blaylock, I think has another year.
Yep.
It's going to be pretty good.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the incoming guys, lots of defensive linemen, lots of linebackers to bolster that defense. So,
yeah,
very excited.
100%. But that is going to conclude our college segment. That's all we got. Stay tuned. Every Tuesday we will have updates as far as transfer portal news around Tech in Georgia, and just whatever's going on, biggest news in, just the college football landscape. So you can look forward to that. But all right, we're going to go ahead and go to our third segment. We're going to start with the Chiefs. Craig, how do you just feel about them heading into the postseason? Got the rest of them last week, going as the 3 seed. Just how are you feeling? How are you feeling about the matchup against the Miami Dolphins?
Well, I'm going to be honest. This football season, my mindset was, it's not about the Chiefs. It's not about the Bulldogs. It's about the Walton Raiders. And so I already had my heart broken this year. So as far as the Chiefs, I mean, it's just been a really tough season. Very tough. They can't score 20 points. Obviously, they're sitting starters last week, but they get the win barely. They rely on a 98-yard fumble recovery. What's the offense going to look like? Can they draw up the game plan? Can they return to the Chiefs that we saw the last few seasons, the creative play calling, the long drives that we have not seen them accomplish at all this season? I think they're going up against a Miami team that, like 90% of the teams in the league this year, has had hot and cold games. They have had their fair deal of their own injuries, but it's just the inconsistency across the board in the NFL this season. Outside of a few teams, I don't think anyone knows what to expect with some of these names that made the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have our picks in here in a little bit. But, yeah, I agree. The inconsistency has been pretty big here. I don't think there's been not one dominant team. I think every team has went through a stretch where they struggled a little bit. The most dominant team looks like has been the Ravens. Like, San Fran even went through a stretch. They struggled, 3-game losing streak. We see Philly kind of in a rut right now, up and down for the Bills. They started the season, I think, was it 6-6, struggling a lot, finally went on the win streak towards the end of the season. Dolphins now kind of in a rut, lost a couple games back to back. You're right, Greg. I mean, the inconsistency has been looming large.
And I mean, Harrison Butker, shout out to him, but it's like we aren't winning in the playoffs with 5 field goals.
No.
We've got to have someone score some damn touchdowns. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
It has been so long. So I don't know. We'll see. I think they're going to try to establish the run, but it's going to come down to the receivers, and a team like the Chiefs, who the past few seasons have been number 1 in the league on third downs, have suddenly just lost that ability.
That too, and then you got to add the drops in there too. Lead the league with 40 plus, so that obviously doesn't help.
I mean, they're going to give a great effort. I think there's no chance that they're going to go in there and not use that home field advantage and try to put it all out there. I think they can beat the Dolphins, but it's just the one thing I'm looking for, sustained drive and just some offensive dominance, whether it's one quarter. It's like I just want to see it at some point.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll see it in the playoffs, Craig. You never know. Obviously, you can never count out the Chiefs, so it's going to be interesting to see. But let's move on to, obviously, you mentioned the inconsistency, but let's move on to biggest sleeper in the playoffs for you, Craig. Who you kind of got your eye on as a team you think can make some noise this year? That's not being talked about.
That's not being talked about.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Packers.
That's a good one. That's on my list too. That is on my list too. Yeah, I got Packers on there. Why do you think Packers, Craig?
Like the way they've been playing late in the season. They've seemed to have found their formula, and so whether you look at the teams that have been up and down, it seems like they're kind of on the positive momentum side. I think they've been playing better. And yeah, I think this is going to be a good matchup.
I agree
I
with
think
you.
they could shock some people.
And we're going to talk about that in just a bit. But I agree. One of my biggest sleepers is the Packers. I like the receiving core correct. Christian Watson, Romeo Dubs, and Jaden Reed. They have stepped up big. Not the big names that you would think, but they are giving good targets for Love to throw to. And that was a big question we had last year with Aaron Rodgers when they didn't make the playoffs. But this year they made it. And these guys have stepped up big in a major way. My next one, I got to go Texans, Craig. I really am high on C.J. Stroud. You know how I felt about him. I had them with the upset last year, beating Georgia. Came so close. And he's having an outstanding rookie year. Made the playoffs. Think they also accomplished some history. Him and DeMeco Ryans, first time rookie quarterback and a rookie coach have went to playoffs in a long time. So
yeah, that's since Harbaugh and Flacco, and then Smith and Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
they were the last ones to do it.
Yep.
So that is a big accomplishment, and they're going to have home field.
They're going to have home field. Yep, they won the division as well.
So that's a first too.
Yep. So it's going to be tough. They got to play the Browns. We'll talk about the game a little bit more in a sec. But I think I like their chances. I like what their offense is doing. If the defense can play complimentary football, I like their chances. And the next one, I know I've kind of had my critiques on them, but I'm going to go Bills. I think I know they're a 2 seed, but a lot of people are not talking about them. You might potentially see another AFC divisional rematch between the Bills and the Chiefs in the second round, this time in Buffalo. So I think they really helped their case this year, being home, like being a high 2 seed instead of having to go on the road. So that definitely helps come playoff time. But I think just they're playing a lot better. They're involving the running game more with Leonard Fournette now and obviously James Cook. And they just look like a better team with Joe Brady at the helm as the offensive coordinator. And they're playing some good football. They struggled a little bit against the Dolphins, but picked it up at the right time and able to win the game.
That's right. Yeah, that would be a big time matchup. Looks like it'll be pretty cold. They're saying it's going to snow.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to do that last year.
Good chance at taking it to the Steelers. That would be a great game. I like the Lions. One game where I thought they did get exposed to some weaknesses. It was the Packers game. They could not block for the entirety of the game. But I think that's a good matchup. They'll be at home. I think the Lions had success last year. They've been relevant the entire year this time around. Rams will be tough. We know they're going to dial up some creativity, but I think the Lions know what they're good at, and they should be able to win that one.
They should. We're going to do game picks in just a second. But, Greg, what's your thoughts on Philadelphia? Eagles are 1-5 in the last 6 games. I talked about the secondary, and that's proven to be true. But do you think it is salvageable in order for them to make a run this year?
I think I actually brought this up with the Chiefs during their collapse. It is so frustrating. Let's say you're on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs. You guys are going out there. You're holding the opponent to 10 points, 13 points, and your offense just is dropping balls, lining up off sides, playing like absolute crap. You start to resent them. Maybe not openly. You guys are good. I'm not calling out anyone on that, but when Philly is having that much trouble in the secondary, and I said yesterday, they're the only team where I tune in and watch them. It's actual blown coverages in key moments. Guys are just wide open. The communication's off. The rest of the team starts like, hey, man, I'm out here. I'm trying to do my thing. You guys are dropping the ball. I'm not saying they're doing that, but that's something where I think that can lead when you have just one area that's not performing as well.
Yeah.
It can just
they can bleed into other areas. Yeah. So interesting, Craig. Well, I'll say in my perspective, Craig, I don't think it's salvageable. I think you have to move on. No disrespect to Sirianni. I'm not saying he's not a great coach, but I think, Craig, he's lost the locker room. I really do. Yeah. If you look at how the gestures have been, how Devontae Smith was coming over, and kind of how they went back and forth before he got hurt, and then Hassan Reddick trying to talk to his coach, him interrupting the coach to get the proper call. And it's kind of A.J. Brown's face. Obviously, he said the right things in the media, but you can tell this team is not buying what he's putting out. And Craig, you know this very well. You've played the sport. You've played in college. You know when a coach loses a locker room, you know what you kind of have to do. And I think he's lost the locker room. It's an unfortunate skid. Obviously, Jason Kelsey's probably going to retire now, but I don't think it's salvageable. But I do think you have to move on from him as the head coach. I just think the team don't look right, right? And it starts with the head coach. You have to blame him first, and then the coordinators. They have not been good. Obviously, this is Sirianni's offense. He hasn't been great. Brian Johnson hasn't been great. They moved on from Sean Desai and got Matt Patricia in, so that didn't help. But I just think all those things have kind of warmed up into a storm, kind of a snowball effect, and it's hurt the team. But I think if I'm Philly, especially if you get blown out this weekend by Tampa Bay, you have to move on.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so true. It's like once the coach or once you lose the locker room, where do you get it back? Sure. If a team's dealt with an injury or maybe just some tough loss, sometimes a team can turn it back on. But when there's no one to really point at and it is just a complete underperformance, I don't know if anything exists to get them back to the high they were running last year.
I don't think so either. And there's different cases real quick. We talked about obviously with Jacksonville, right? They kind of faltered towards the end, but you could tell they haven't lost faith in their coach, right? A lot of it was injuries. Trevor Lawrence dealing with the concussion, the shoulder, the ankle, just trying to, battle through it, but just couldn't. You can tell with them, like, they just came up short, a lot of injuries. You can tell, like, Peterson hasn't lost the locker room. It looks like a whole different situation with Philly.
Yeah, that game against the Giants was bad.
Yeah, and you lost the Cardinals at home. You put up 31 points. Your defense gave up 35. Couldn't get a stop.
Yeah. So we'll see if they can find it. But, yeah, that's something that I don't think exists when you lose it that bad to be able to get back on top. And so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, 2 more segments before we wrap up the show today. Got to go with you, Craig. What are your MVP picks? Who are some guys you got in that conversation that you think are deserving of the award?
I think we brought it up. It's Lamar Jackson on lock, hands down. I don't know who else you'd even give it to. I think what he's done this year, just consistent. It is a tough division. Yeah, the Steelers had some bad weeks, but every division was down this year. Who else would you give it to?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Greg. I think Lamar Jackson's a lock. A strong 2, I think, is Christian McCaffrey, what he's been able to do. I think he's more of an asset to that team and more kind of valuable to that team than Brock Purdy is. Obviously, he's good, but I think a lot of that offense runs through McCaffrey, and that helps up Deebo Samuel and obviously George Kittle. But if I had to say a strong 2, Greg, I'd say Christian McCaffrey. But as you said, I think Lamar Jackson has it on lock. I think he's been performing great all year. And that last game, and when they beat the Dolphins and he threw only 3 incompletions and he had over 321 yards and 5 touchdowns, that sealed it for me.
100%. And then who do you think's been the best defensive player?
That's a good question. If I had to throw that out there, I think you got to go T.J. Watt. I think he's going to lead the league in sacks again. I will go T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, and then Micah Parsons. And then at the DB position, probably DeRon Bland, which is how it's been getting cooked a little bit, but he's been big with the pick sixes. But I would go T.J. Watt and then Myles Garrett. I think it's between those two. And one that's underrated, Craig, Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati, 17.5 sacks this year. Absolutely balled out. Was the reason why we were able to create so much pressure this year. Hopefully next year they get him some help. Just signed a 1-year extension with us this past summer, but he balled out.
Yeah, it's probably more than some teams. Like, I know those years.
Yeah, man. But I would say, who would you say, though, you think is the best defensive player? I think it's TJ.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about it until just now. Yeah. I'll have to come up with it later.
Okay. Well, we have to come up with that. But let's conclude the show, Craig. Let's go ahead with the wild card predictions. We're going to keep note of this when obviously football starts back. College football starts back. We'll be back with our predictions. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. We'll be back with that here pretty soon, and probably a little bit of high school as well. But let's go ahead and start. Browns, Texans, Craig, who you rolling with?
Texans.
Me as well. So we are in agreement there. I'm going to keep track of the picks, but I think we both agree. Browns have a good team. I know the emergence of Flacco has them very excited, but I think Houston is at another level. They're going to have to be able to protect, obviously, C.J. Stroud, not let him get hurt because Myles Garrett and that defensive front and line is coming, okay? So they got to be able to protect and give him time, but I roll with Houston as well.
I think he is prepared for the big moment.
I think so, too. All right, Craig, next one, Dolphins, Chiefs. Who you rolling with?
Got to go with the Chiefs at home.
Yeah. All right, so Craig got Chiefs. I'm going to roll with the upset. I'm going to roll with the Dolphins. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a great game. I think they're going to be making a couple more plays than the Chiefs in that one. And I'm going to go back to this. If you're the Dolphins, you were winning that game 14-7 against the Bills, right? You're running the football. Continue to run the football. Bleed a little bit of clock. You know this, Craig. One of the formulas, not saying it will beat Mahomes, but you have to be able to control the clock. control the ball, keep him off the field. I think if the Dolphins are going in this game, control it with Mostert, control it with your running backs, Cheney, and just don't put so much on Tua. Allow Tua to kind of play within the confines of the offense. Run the ball, hit Tyreek Hill. Hopefully Jalen Waddle will be able to play. I think you got a good shot.
Yep. The thing that worries me, you remember this game last year, all season long, I was watching Tampa Bay, and I'm like, man, they are horrible. Tom Brady is way over the hill. He looks like crap. Tampa Bay looks awful. And then they went up against the Cowboys and just got steamrolled, absolutely destroyed. I think we're going to see 1 or 2 games like that where teams that we've known have struggled, we've been like, okay, can they get it together? I think they're going to come in and prove that we've been right the whole season. I think that could happen, even to a team like the Chiefs. So beware.
Beware, and that's from a
saw
Chiefs
it
fan
last year.
himself. Yep, 100%. All right, we got a good one. Steelers, Bills, and you already pointed out, Craig, it is probably going to snow. So who are you taking in that one? That's going to be a physical game. Bills got to come ready. Obviously, Steelers going to bring their hard hat. I don't think TJ Watt's going to play in that game because he had an MCL sprain, but we know the Steelers are going to come ready. Who you got in that one?
Take the Bills in that one.
Okay, so we're in agreement. Craig also has Bills. Yeah, I think they're playing at a really good level right now. I think they'll be able to control the clock, and I think their defense is going to force turnovers against Mason Rudolph. No disrespect to him. He's been their best quarterback this year, but I think it's going to be tough. If you're the Steelers going in this game, lean on the rushing attack. Najee Harris has been having really good games the last few weeks. Lean on him and Jalen Warren to run the ball, but I think Bills as well.
Yep, so that'll kick us off on Sunday.
Yep. All right. So the kryptonite for the Cowboys has been over the last few years the Packers. So, I mean, obviously 2 completely different teams. Cowboys had a really strong season, number 2 seed. Dak broke records. CD Lamb broke records. Running game's been pretty decent this year. Defense has been off the charts, even with the injuries to Trayvon Diggs. Deron Bland has stepped up. Curse has stepped up. DeMarcus Lawrence. They got guys. So who you got in this one?
I want to pick the upset, but I think you're going to, so I'm going with the Cowboys.
All right, so I think Craig is starting to know me well now, but he has the Cowboys. I am rolling upset, so he knows me pretty well. I think the Packers are going to be able to come in here, make a little bit of noise. I like their offensive line. The key position I got in this, Craig, that I have circled that I think will be very, very interesting to watch, the Packers' defensive line. We talked about it after Thanksgiving break, what they were able to do to the Lions and their offensive line. If they can have that kind of a similar impact, I like the Packers' chances with the ability to run the football, obviously, with Aaron Jones and obviously, gosh, I can't think of the guy's name. It's also a backup running back for them. Dillard, I think, is the name. I think Packers have a bigger chance than people are giving them credit for. And I think this is the matchup, Craig. Cowboys in that one.
Yep, watch out for turnovers. I think that's going to be the key.
100%. All right, last 2. Lions, Rams, Craig. Who you got?
Going with the Lions.
Okay, Craig has Lions. I have 2. It's such an intriguing matchup because you think about it, Craig. Lions traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams.
That's right.
And then the Rams traded Jared Goff, and this is the first time they're playing in a long time against each other. So I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup. And also the first game the Lions have hosted since 1993 at home. Man. So a little bit of history. You know that crowd is going to be rocking at Ford Field. I think it's going to be electric, like you said. I got to go with the Lions, too. Yeah. I think they're going to just have too much.
So that was 94. Then Michigan wins for the first time since 97. Yep. They're
going up.
Michigan's back.
Yep. Just the Pistons are struggling, but hey, at least you got football. All right, Craig, last one.
Michigan State's nowhere on the map.
No, nowhere.
Come on, guys.
All right, Craig, last one. Eagles and Bucks, man. Who are you rolling with?
Oh, my God. That is a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm going with the Eagles.
Ooh, Craig, you're bold for that one. I am going with the Bucks. I just think the Eagles aren't playing good football. I think Bucks are going to be physical. They've lost 2 games to non-playoff teams, right? Obviously, you got the Cardinals, the Giants. I think there's going to be a snowball effect, and I think, like I said, I think Sirianni ends up getting fired. But Craig is going to be confident still and roll with him. I'm rolling with the upset.
The only reason I'm picking them is because it would vindicate that the NFC South really has been what I thought it was.
Oh,
that's my only thought process. I want to pick the Bucks, but I've been ragging on the NFC South, so I'm going with the Eagles.
Going with the Eagles. All right, guys. So that's all we got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Craig will be back tomorrow with Drive for the GHSA State title. His show on Wednesday. You can stream it right here on YouTube as well as on Twitch. So hope you guys enjoyed the show today. We'll be back next week for more news. Stay tuned to scoreatl.com for all the news and latest updates around high school sports. That's all we got. We'll see you guys next